Welcome to today's Bass Coast Shire Council meeting. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online in accordance with Council's live streaming policy and governance rules. Members of the public joining us in the gallery today, by attending this public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published, which is somewhat redundant. We don't have a public gallery, but anyway, today, the Chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and comments. Thank you. Virtual meeting statement. Section 394 of the Local Government Act 2020 allows council meeting attendance by electronic means. The requirement of the meeting being open to the public is satisfied by the meeting being streamed live to council's net. In the event of technical issues with a live stream, the meeting will be adjourned. Council is deemed as being in attendance if they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen, and they can be heard to speak. Now, I'll put my mobile telephone on quiet, so please turn off all mobile telephones, or in the case of an emergency, please advise the chair and switch to silent mode. So this is a statement of acknowledgement. Bass Coast Shire Council acknowledges the Ventnor as traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waters and pays respect to their elders, past, present and emerging. But they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and law. Bass Coast Shire Council celebrates the opportunity to embrace and empower the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island communities in their diversity. Bass Coast Shire Council will create opportunities for future recognition and respectful partnerships that will honour the traditional owners and custodians and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Now I call on Councillor Larke to read the councillor statement, please.
All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item, without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in an item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Larke. There are no apologies, and we have two declarations of interest. Councillor Ron Bauer in respect to H7, response to petition shared path for pedestrians and cyclists between Ventnor and Cows, and Councillor Brett Tessari for F2, extractive mining moratorium and referral to the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. So confirmation of minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of July 2022, and I have a councillor move and a councillor to second the minutes of the council meeting held on the 20th of July 2022, and that they be confirmed. So that was Councillor Tessari, Councillor Bauer. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Public question time. That brings us to public question time. The first question is from Kevin Griffin, Bass Coast Ratepayers and Residents Association, rate cap. The 2022-23 rate cap is set at 1.75%. Council's budget shows on page 65 that revenue from residential rates is budgeted to increase by 2.9%, whilst most other types fall substantially. Please explain in plain English why residential rate revenues are budgeted to increase by almost twice the rate cap.
Through the Mayor, Bass Coast Shire is a growing municipality and there is an increase in the number of properties that are charged rates associated with this growth. The average rates increase that can be charged per property is capped at 1.75%. As the number of properties that can be charged rates has grown, it is expected that the total revenue will be greater than 1.75%. The value of residential properties has also increased at a greater value than other property types, such as farms, commercial and industrial. And this means that residential properties will also need to contribute a greater proportion relative to previous years.
Second question is from Graham Jolly, Municipal Association of Victoria. The Municipal Association of Victoria is the peak body for councils in Victoria. The MAV has an approximate income of 136 million. How much money did council pay to the MAV for the years 2020, 21, 22?
Through the Mayor, Council paid the MAV $87,769 in 2020-21 and $88,673 in 2021-2022. These amounts include annual membership fees as well as payment for training and professional development for councillors and council officers. In addition, public liability insurance costs of $414,023 and $447,953 were paid in 2021 and 2021-22 respectively. Contributions of $393,197 in 2021 and $599,400 in 21-22 were also made for the MAV Workcare Scheme, noting that this has now ceased.
Linda Marston, Island Voice. Topic 85 Thompson Avenue extensive engagement. 85 Thompson Avenue extensive engagement in 2018 resulted in Planning Amendment C.1 which identified that maximum building height should be 3 storeys along Thompson Avenue. Will councillors and council support the community and enforce this in the VCAT hearing for the planned hotel?
Through the Mayor, Council will make a decision on the amended plans supplied through the VCAT process at a future council meeting.
The next question is from Gina Rosa-Millier. Contracts awarded GST. Researching Council's webpage under tenders and then contracts awarded. The spreadsheet file of costings include GST tax payable. Where does Council report quarterly GST cost payable per contract? And question 5, apologies. All from Melissa Dagg on the same subject, council tender contracts. Council has a tender contract listing. Each contract includes GST. Why does council report to councillors at meeting projects costing exclusively of GST?
Through the Mayor, as council is registered for GST, all GST paid is recoverable as an input tax credit and is not a cost to council. Council accordingly does not need to account for GST as an expense. Council publishes GST inclusive amounts on contracts awarded as we are obligated to pay the GST amount to the contractor.
Melissa Dagg, Kilcunda Bass Football Club infrastructure updates. What can be done by council to provide funding to the Kilcunda Bass Football Club to update infrastructure similar to what has occurred with facilities at Inverloch, Wonthaggi, Phillip Island and continuing at Daleston?
Through the Mayor, in response to the recent installation of new netball courts and oval flood lighting at Bass Recreation Reserve, Council intends to undertake further capital upgrades at the reserve in coming years and in 2022-23 will work with the Reserve Committee and user groups to complete a detailed design for a new netball pavilion. The design consultant engaged to undertake the netball pavilion design will also prepare drawings which will be utilised for the upgrade of the existing football pavilion and complement work that the Kilcunda Bass Football Netball Club have already undertaken in this space. The drawings obtained through the design process will also provide an opportunity to ascertain external funding for the refurbishment works to be completed.
Next question is from Mario Boffa, CEO appointment to Alpine Regional Advisory Committee. The CEO of the Bass Coast Shire has been appointed chair of the newly formed Alpine Regional Advisory Committee in a paid capacity, increasing the CEO's board positions to 5. How will the CEO continue all duties and responsibilities 100% of the time at council? And I will give this response. The appointment by the Minister for Environment and Climate Action, Lady D'Ambrosio, on the 10th of August 2022 recognised Ms Wastie's ability to make connections across a range of sectors, including health, tourism, education and regional development. Ms Wastie serves on a number of boards that add value to council and our communities. It is quite common for high-performing local government CEOs to hold board positions across multiple organisations, recognising incredible skill set, network and experience they have. Next question is also from Mario Boffa. Topic: Capital Works Projects. Council reports 185 capital works projects. The tender contracts awarded spreadsheet listing report currently about 102. Where can ratepayers read the missing tender contracts that make up the total projects of 185?
Through the Mayor, in line with Council's procurement policy, not all projects require a tender or contract to deliver.
Next question is from Bernie McComb. Trees in Bass Coast. With ever more attention to trees, even ratepayer-funded consultant project Urban Forest, how about just one tall big shade canopy tree in middle of cows? Yes, it will take decades before full size, so soonest is best to start, with plaque to explain and armour guarding to prevent vandalism.
Through the Mayor, Council is currently developing an urban forest strategy to guide the management and enhancement of vegetation cover in our townships. Community consultation on the draft will inform prioritisation of opportunities to fill gaps in the existing canopy, including in key activity centres such as cows.
Bernie McComb, car parking in Bass Coast. Addressing community concern, cows prices car parking about Isle of Wight. Previous owners finally agreed condition basement parking reduced 450 to 350. Is 350 car parks conditioned for plan by new developer, or will council offer recent trend 50% exemption regulation number car parks for this and every project?
Through the Mayor, all planning permit applications are assessed against the car parking requirements at clause 52.06 of the Bass Coast Planning Scheme. When an application for redevelopment of the Isle of Wight is submitted to Council, an assessment of the car parking requirements will be conducted based on the uses and patron numbers proposed.
Fred Morris, Council's assets. Would Council direct me to a full listing of all of Council's assets with current valuation prices, or should I seek the details privately or through a FOI lodgement?
Through the Mayor, Council does not have a publicly available list of all assets with current valuations, and I would encourage you to discuss your request with Council officers in the first instance.
Fred Morris, rates and charges. Council has determined a total chargeable cost to ratepayers for rates and charges in the 2022-23 budget. Rates are one component and charges another. Would Council provide a detailed full listing in descriptive form that comprise what the charges are actually for?
Through the Mayor, section 19.2 of the budget document provides a reconciliation of total rates and charges. It includes rates, waste management charge, special rates and charges, supplementary rates and rate adjustments, interest on rates and charges, and revenue in lieu of rates.
That's the end of question time, and that brings us to petitions, joint letters, deputations and correspondence, of which there are none. Notices of motion. First notice of motion, F1 248-22, contracts for service, brackets including consultants and contractors. Councillor Larke, this is a notice of motion from you. Can you read the motion without speaking to it, please? Les, you're on mute. Excuse me, Councillor Larke.
Before I do so, Mr. Mayor, I propose to narrow the scope of my notice of motion and focus initially on consultants.
Okay, if you read that amended motion then, please, Councillor Larke.
Yeah, I understand.
You have
Robin
a copy?
Boyle, yeah, has a copy.
This is the amended. Okay, is there a seconder for that notice of motion? Seconded, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Larke?
Thank you. Engagement of consultants is projected to cost Council in excess of $2 million in 2021-22 and again in 22-23. The objective of this motion is for transparency purposes and from a due diligence perspective to understand the nature and quantum of the outlays and to improve how the integrity and value for money of consultancy engagements are demonstrated and how application of policy, if any, in relation to these types of arrangements is overseen. I'll elaborate further in my summing up.
Okay, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting. I will be honest, I would not have worded this motion in quite these terms. However, what I believe Councillor Larke is trying to achieve with this motion is to make the council officers more accountable for the money that is being spent on outside consultants and external advice. The implementation of this motion would demonstrate that the money spent is value for money. In July, when we approved the budget, I flagged that we needed a revised budget to look at how we can rectify our financial position in view of the new paradigms. Bass Coast Shire is the avant-garde of Victorian councils, and our CEO, Ms. Wasey, is a tour de force. Other councils look at us with envied eyes with what we have achieved. However, even the most worthwhile of our ambitions and initiatives need monitoring and prudence. We have become victims of our own success. This motion adds a tool to our fiscal reporting. It gives us the statistical evidence to back up the inevitable changes that the current economic climate has cruelly imposed on us for both our 4-year and 10-year plans. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. I'm somewhat frustrated by this notice of motion on a number of matters. One of it is the lack of willingness from Councillor Larke to actually discuss this notice of motion prior to it coming to the council meeting. There's been plenty of opportunities, but he has not been forthcoming. Even now, in his approach at the start to talk to this notice of motion, he's left most of the discussion for at the very end when he has his rebuttal. I find there's a lack of transparency, therefore, with this notice of motion because we really don't know what it's about. And therefore, I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Larke, what call from the community have you heard to suggest we need this report?
Point of order, Mayor Whelan.
Go ahead with your point of order, Councillor Larke.
I don't think there is scope within council meetings to question other councillors. And my motion will be
Well, I
elaborated.
think there is. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Councillor Larke. We've got a bit of a lag, so apologies for that. Look, I think it is our practice that we do allow questions on items, but you don't have to answer if that is your intention. But I'm happy to take the question. Councillor Larke.
What do you mean, take the question?
Well, I think it's reasonable for Councillor Rooks to ask a question. If you don't want to answer it, that's your business. But I think I'm ruling that the question's okay.
Could Councillor Rook please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. Councillor Rook.
What call from the community have you heard to suggest we need this report?
Formal questions, no, but there's a lot of questions within the community in the lead up to both elections that I've been elected in relation to councillors, in relation to elections and council's use of consultancies. I understand there's also been some writings in previous times about consultants, but it's not an uncommon question that I receive from time to time from different quarters. I can't provide evidence of that, but I'm sure you would understand you have many informal conversations with your constituents.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Rooks.
My second question is, how do you intend to utilise this report?
I'll cover that in my summing up.
The third question is, how long do you think this work may take?
I have not a feel for that, but not extensive.
Okay, thanks for that. My understanding is that it's going to take around 2 to 4 weeks. There's around 1,000 invoices that we need to go through manually. Maybe we'll have to get a contractor in to do this work, who knows? The issue of not having discussion about this is frustrating because I like to make thoughtful decisions. I like to do research beforehand, and now I'm being put on the spot, and I find that's poor governance. The last point with this notice of motion is it's purely operational. It's not something that, as councillors, we have to get concerned with. We set the budget and the CEO and her team implement it. And that includes the use of consultants, using those as opposed to employees. So I don't support this notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question of the officers about the availability of this information. My understanding is that it does form part of our quarterly reports. Is there any, could Councillor Larke have received this information through going through the request from the CEO or the officers rather than it coming into the council chamber? So I guess my question is twofold.
Okay, I'll refer that to Mr. Mack.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the annual report provides a breakdown of materials and services that council expenses through the year, and that calls out consultants specifically. So it's been around $1.7, $1.8 million in the last two annual reports, and that's articulated, I think, at section 4.2. The quarterly report provides updates on specific projects. It doesn't necessarily articulate what's a consultant or what's a contractor and a works contractor. So that breakdown's not in the quarterly report.
Councillor Halstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mack. Just to Councillor Larke, one more question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Have you had a look at this information, Councillor Larke, that is available? And is there further information that you require that these reports don't already cover?
Yes, and I'll cover that in my summing up.
Thank you, Councillor Larke. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's worrying for me as a councillor to be asked to allocate an unbudgeted amount of resources and ratepayer funds to develop a list of indistinct line items on a motion about consultants. And there has been little collaboration on developing this motion, and it's unfortunate that I have to listen to the summing up before I can make up my mind. The framework asked for in this motion is, from what I've been able to understand, inconsistent with the Local Government Better Practice Guide and Model Budget released by Local Government Victoria. It is also inconsistent with the Australian Accounting Standards as authorised by the Australian Accounting Standards Board, and that is an Australian government agency. In particular, I refer to Clause 2, which is a request for the line item on whether consultant costs are treated as capital or expensed. The distinction here does not deliver a very clear picture of how ratepayer funds are used in terms of using consultants. For example, where council hires a consultant to design a town precinct master plan, there is arguably no capital in that project, and it would largely be categorised as expensed. But that master plan is crucial for the capital works that council would then be able to do. So it may look like council received no return on investment, but now it has, because of that, hypothetical master plan, the proper tools to achieve a staged development for a town precinct. And that's just one example. This shows that the reporting framework requested in motion to me is flawed. It does not deliver any value for time or resources, which are unbudgeted for in our annual budget. And I'd also like to highlight that Councillor Larke did not support the annual budget this year. And it does not also deliver any clarity on the return on investment from using consultants. And it does not follow best practice legislated by the AASB standards. So unfortunately for these reasons, I will not support it. But I do encourage further collaboration so we can get a clearer picture and move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Larke.
Thank you, Mayor. In essence, I think pretty much all the spoken words have missed the point. In essence, for consultancy engagements, it's not about accounting standards and other standards that are out there. In essence, for consultancy engagement, there must be demonstration of high levels of integrity in processes while pursuing value for money outcomes, and demonstration that engagements were well planned, effectively procured, well managed, and comprehensively evaluated. I've searched the policy database, and with the exception of minor mentions in the procurement policy, I do not have a high level of confidence that the necessary policy framework, processes and practices are in place, and recommend this motion be passed as a first step to ensure high-level management of consultancy engagements and oversight of these practices. We're talking about performance, not reporting, and I put the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Larke. Those in favour? Those against? It's lost. Brings it to H.2 Extractive Mining Moratorium and referral to the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. Before we move into that, Councillor Tassari will leave the room. So, Councillor Lang, I understand you have an amended version. Do you wish to read it out to us without actually speaking to the motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this motion is about encouraging further engagement on extractive mining with the community and with council, and also highlighting the State of the Environment report and the referrals to Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Is there a seconder for this notice of motion? Councillor Holstead. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The latest results of the federal government's audits on the State of Australia's Environment report are damning. They show that resource extraction, among other major factors, is placing a heavy toll on our forests, habitats and biodiversity. This report shows how vital it is we address extractive mining in our shire and continuing to engage with state and federal ministers and governments to achieve a suitable outcome for whether mining should continue in our shire and to what extent, and especially where it should go. Currently, there is little or no community engagement mechanism in place to ensure that the community or council has a seat at the table on whether sand mining should expand into the extractive industry interest areas or EIIAs, or whether it should occur at all in the Bass Coast. Do we need to wait until local native animals are on the verge of extinction before action is taken? How can our community laud itself as an ecotourism hotspot when this mining continues to expand on our doorstep? How will anyone enjoy the trip through the waterline corridor when they are sharing it with thousands of trucks shifting sand so Melbourne can have its major projects? These and other questions should be addressed with the community and council, with both state and federal ministers who have the power to reconsider the expansion of sand mining in the Western Port woodlands and other areas in the Bass Coast Shire that are earmarked for extractive industry interests, including the Holden Proving Ground, which has the highest rated ecological vegetation class according to the Victorian Regional Forests Agreements classification system. We have already made our submission clear through our submission to the draft statement of planning policy for the distinctive area and landscape plan, and whether the land is private or public should be irrelevant if our community continues to experience the pressures of thousands of truck movements on Grantville roads, the dust, and watching their favourite woodlands turn into massive open pit quarries. Since the Dandy Premix planning decision, the community have voiced their serious concerns about the expansion of extractive mining to me and my fellow councillors, and I have already received contact from members in the community who are pleased to see this motion going before council. Yet we are still to have any minister attend and look at the potential impacts of sand mining. This motion asks for ministers to be genuine in their consideration of what is about to happen to one of our last portions of remnant forest in the southernmost part of Victoria. And it also asks for that engagement to be transparent. I encourage councillors to support this motion so we can properly engage with state and federal ministers and governments to achieve the best outcome for our community with extractive mining.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the work of the community members in their fight to protect these highly sensitive environments, particularly Mr. Tim O'Brien and the Save the Western Port Woodlands group, who have been working tirelessly in protecting it. When the Victorian government announced they were going to declare Bass Coast a distinctive area and landscape, the community were excited with the definition of that title, meaning the protection of our environment, landscape and the lifestyle of Bass Coast. We waited a long 2 years with hope that this new title might offer protection to the last of the Western Port Woodlands as the only significant coastal forest in one of the most cleared regions in a state that has the most cleared vegetation in this country, according to the Victorian Auditor General. Let's not forget that council can advocate on behalf of its community, but is not the governing authority. It is the Victorian government who designates the land for sand extraction and regulates the industry through the Earth Resources Regulator, a department who appear to be understaffed and under-resourced. Council should hold a seat at the table when it comes to decisions being made that will affect the Bass Coast community, and this activity clearly does. This notice of motion is not an attack on the pit owners, who are entitled through the work authorities provided to them by the Victorian government and who have invested significantly in their operations to operate under the conditions of those authorities. It's time for all state politicians and wannabe politicians, as we know, Mr. Mayor, we're about to head into a state election, to get behind the rhetoric and protect the environment, landscape and lifestyle of Bass Coast, as has been promised with the current government through their declaration of Bass Coast as an area of distinctive area and landscape, which includes Western Port Woodlands. I commend this notice of motion and I thank Councillor Lang for the work that she's done in putting it together. And once again, specifically to Mr. Tim O'Brien, who sent out an email that contained a lot of what is listed in Councillor Lang's notice of motion. And I just appreciate that she has brought it to the table. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion?
Question.
Councillor Bauer.
It's a question, not of Councillor Lang.
Go ahead.
In what ways is this motion different to the motion that we passed over a year ago?
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. This motion is different because it is highlighting the key factors that have come to light very recently with the State of the Environment report that was released in August. And also it is different because it is requesting very clearly some engagement with the community and with council for state and federal ministers, rather than focusing on previous planning decisions like Dandy Premix. So it takes the step of engagement a lot further and also highlights the latest data that we have, which points to extractive mining being a serious problem and has a lot of pressures for our environment.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Whelan. I just wanted to thank Councillor Lang for the work that she's put in to this notice of motion in trying to open up the lines of communication further with the state, federal and other relevant agencies on this issue, and also thank her for providing full opportunities to collaborate with all other councillors in bringing this forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Larke.
My question is simply around the fact that this notice of motion aligns with Council's already submission to the draft statement of planning policy and officers will implement if supported. I can't quite see the value add in duplicating the very extensive and valuable work done by the officers to date in relation to the statement of planning policy. And in the light of the previous.
Apologies, can you restate that last point, Councillor Larke?
Well, if Councillor Lang certainly has gone some way to allaying my concerns that we're just duplicating previous motions passed by Council. But my question really relates to the fact that Council's submission to the draft statement of planning policy has already been made with the expertise and fine work that the officers have done to date in a collaborative way with DELP and other departments and officers, and I just wonder whether we're going over the top with regard to this matter.
Thanks, Councillor Larke. Councillor Lang, wish to answer that?
Sorry, was that a question rather than a statement? Was that a point?
Was around is this duplication of the work that was done in the submission, the SPP submission for the DEL. Is that fair enough?
Yes.
I think that's fair enough, Councillor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the SPP, I have worked with council officers. I've received advice from them on the draft SPP submission that council made, and I have worked with them in order to develop this motion to further strengthen the level of engagement that we do. Also, the draft SPP submission was just to the state government, and this motion asks for an engagement with the federal government and also for a closer look under the referrals process under the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. Have I got all those words mixed up? But that act, the EPB.
We understand. All right, thanks, Councillor Lang. Councillor Larke, did you wish to speak to the motion?
No, nothing further.
Thank you, Councillor Larke. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, it has raised many issues over many years, this extractive industry within Bass Coast, but I think it's broader than that. I think that we should be sitting at the table with the industry and working with them to get better outcomes if that's the desire of the community. I've read the State of the Environment report and it's a very compelling report, and I agree with its principles. That report assesses the changing conditions of our natural environment across 12 themes. It is designed to assist in assessing our actions as a community and the stewardship of the Australian environment, the impacts, the influences and the behaviour of individuals, communities and business. With the notice of motion we've got here today, I don't really support a stop work on the work authorities that we've already got. I believe we should be working with the industry to get better outcomes. What I do support, though, is to keep advocating to the government to do better when it comes to policing of these work authorities, resource the earth resources regulator adequately, so there's not just one or two people in that office that deal with all the open work authorities that we have. I think that the council needs to have a seat at the table because it's very important that the government knows how we feel about this and gives some credence to our views on the natural environment. Where there's evidence that operators are doing the wrong thing, I think they should, the work authorities, the government should throw the book at them. But I think it's a statewide issue, and that's why we should be working in collaboration with the industry to get better outcomes. I thank Councillor Lang for some of the amendments that she made to it. I'm particularly pleased to see that we would be consulting and writing to the Federal Minister for the Environment and Water, highlighting the issues that have been raised here today. But there have been issues, and I don't think that we've really achieved much so far. From our notice of motion on the 16th of December 2020, I think that we need to do better in that regard, but the government itself needs to sit up and take notice that this is an important issue in Bass Coast.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Kent?
Thank you, Mayor. I better have a word. Can I say I'll go back to the basics for this notice of motion. For me, and I congratulate Councillor Lang for this keeps this topic live. It keeps it up and going within our community, and it just hasn't faded away. Councillor Halstead's correct. We've got the election this day. Politicians, please take note of this. You're going to lose the votes if you don't support the community and if you don't come to the table with all parties and discuss this. Local government has to consult with the community, but it appears that state and federal governments are a little bit exempted from this. So we need to hold them accountable for this too. We've been told that we can expect trucks every couple of minutes travelling along the highway because they need this resource in Melbourne. We have a duty of care to the rest of Victoria to provide resources. Everywhere in Victoria has that duty of care, but Victoria has a duty of care to Bass Coast to maintain what we've got down here too. So, yep, thank you again to Councillor Lang for keeping this up and as a front row topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Lang in response.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may briefly just echo what Councillor Kent said there about the fact that we shouldn't hesitate on what approach we should take when dealing with extractive mining. I have worked with and collaborated with my fellow councillors to develop this motion as with members of the community. And whether this motion is supported or not, I do appreciate the insight that's been provided to me in this process. And also shout out to the council officers who supported this work. We do need to demand more transparent and clear engagement processes for whether we should expand extractive mining in our shire. Some of those work authorities we're talking about are up to 35 years old, so we're not even sure if they're actually relevant to the community as it is today. The extractive industry interest areas mapped in our shire are not really what the community at this stage has signed up for. At least that's the feedback that I've received. Is extractive mining an appropriate land use in this shire? That's a serious conversation we need to have. And we cannot ignore the real data that shows that if action to reduce or restrict mining does not occur, our environment and therefore our quality of life will degrade. This motion is a request to state and federal ministers to meet with council and have an open dialogue on what is a clear issue. And the referral to the federal minister under the EPBC Act ensures that all the appropriate processes are undertaken to protect the endangered flora and fauna found to exist in these extractive industry interest areas. And it will also give us a clearer picture on the impact sand mining has on these environments, and it follows these communities. So I can amend this motion. I always forget the wording at the end, but I've finished talking now.
That'll do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Those in favour? That's against? That's carried. Which brings us to Mayor and Councillor reports. The Mayor's, if yes, we invite Councillor Tassari back in. Mayor and Council reports. The Mayor's report will be in the minutes, and we usually invite other councillors to also do that. We have a special request from Councillor Bauer that he make a short statement in relation to his councillor's report for the months. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a quick statement from the meeting of the 27th of July, where Councillor Holstead, Kent, Ms Kennedy and Mr Woodland attended. Mr Mayor, fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting, it warms the cockles of my heart to inform you that after 2 years of negotiations with the council officers and after 2 notices of motion, that a compromise has been reached in relation to the vexed issue of the collection of the landfill red bin over the summer period. Everybody agrees the main culprits of the unsightly waste are the tenants of the short-term accommodation properties. There will now be a 2-pronged solution. Firstly, when a property is registered for short-term accommodation, the owner or appointed agent must have a waste management plan in place that has been approved by council, and they must ensure that the occupants are informed of waste disposal arrangements. To support this, the owner will be given a registration pack by the Shire. Part of the registration pack encourages tenants to use a green, yellow and red coloured indoor bin so that a thoughtful preliminary sorting of the waste can be done before using the 3 curbside bins. Secondly, by providing an extra red bin capacity on request to these businesses, starting at only $98.42 per year, to upsize the existing 120 litre bin to 240 litre bin. As the short-term accommodation places are run as a business, this additional charge can be passed on to the consumer. Both red bins will be put out on the same day and picked up using the existing waste calendar. This will enable the property owners to cope with the crossover week when there is no landfill collection. As I said last year, let's put a lid on the waste. With up to two red bins, it is most likely that the landfill bins will not overflow and the lids will remain shut. This will overcome the waste looking unsightly and being blown all around town. With the lids shut, the odour problem should also be greatly reduced. A double bin pickup protocol is already in place for the recycled yellow bins and is working well. This red bin initiative is an extension of the Shire's existing waste management plan. It should be noted that the acquiring of an additional red bin capacity is not restricted to the short-term accommodation operators. Residents that have a genuine need for an extra landfill capacity, such as family or friends staying with them regularly, can order an extra large bin for the appropriate fee on the council's website or by phone. This new regime will be monitored by the Shire's waste team over the summer period, and the findings will be presented to councillors early next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. That brings us to reports requiring council decision. H.1 Planning Application 210377, use and development of a residential village, removal of native vegetation. I invite Ms Taylor to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council Planning Permit Application 210377. The application proposes the development of the land for a residential village within the general residential zone, removal of vegetation, signage and removal of easements at 299 to 325 Church Street and 9 Spithead Street in Cowes. The application was advertised and attracted 15 objections. The application has been assessed as consistent with the requirements of the Bass Coast Planning Scheme, and on this basis, it is recommended that Council issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Can I have a councillor to move and a councillor to second the motion? Moved over Councillor David Rooks, seconded. Councillor Lang. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. There's a lot to like about this residential village, this proposal that's put in for Cowes. We are an ageing population here in Bass Coast and including that in Phillip Island. Being an older population, this lifestyle village does meet the local demand that's there. That's already been proved by the old Penguin Resort, which is now Palm Lake, which is full to capacity, and it's very hard to get onto that waiting list there. a lot of locals will be able to, the mature locals in our community will be able to move into this new residential village. And what that'll also do is it'll free up, there's around 280, I think, residential villages. It'll free up 280 houses potentially within our community. And this is a great outcome for our community where rental spaces at the moment are a short supply. As our town boundaries, people are very keen for our town boundaries to be kept as they are. And what this does is it means that we have to have higher density living within those town boundaries. And this residential village is a good example of that. Pleasingly, there's not a lot of impact on the community resources and infrastructure. And if anything, the developer has actually put him back into the community. There's a fantastic list of things that are going to be part of this residential village, which the people staying there will get to enjoy, including cinema, gym, library, a shared tool supply and a pool, an outdoors barbecue, seating, bowls, croquet grounds, outdoor pool and a pickleball court. Not that I know what a pickleball court is. So they're adding to the community. They're also putting in some new pathways, and they're putting a new pathway down Bella Vista Road, which will make its way to the foreshore. And should the proposed Cows to Ventnor trail go ahead, they will be able to walk all the way into town, which will be a leisurely walk through the Conservation Reserve, which will take around 30 minutes, relieving them of the need to get into their cars. I might just leave it at that for now, and I'll talk more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I happen to know what pickleball is, and it's like a miniaturised version of tennis, David. So anyway, I don't have much further to add, but just to underscore that Bass Coast Shire is an aged population. The median age for someone, according to the latest ABS data, is 52 years old, and the Victorian average is actually 37 years old. So we do need to provide an offering of housing for the older people in our community. And also we have a high proportion of households where we have these, they have large homes, but there's only a couple of them living in there. So we do need to provide a higher density offering, smaller housing offering for these people. So I think that in this regard, this lifestyle village does address these factors in our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Two at once. Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I consider this proposal an overdevelopment of the site, that internal referrals or council's internal referrals of strategic planning, our waste team, our open space teams have all shown concerns with. Any consideration that this application will assist in provision of affordable housing is flawed when this report states clearly the business model provided will not address the state policies for housing affordability in the typical sense. The intention of the proposal is marketed at over 55s. However, the application is not exclusive to over 55s. So in saying this, younger single residents or residents with families are not sufficiently serviced by the provision of facilities. Just because the site is a large central location to cows shouldn't mean the prospective owners should not be entitled to good design with plenty of open space and the cows community a development that they can be proud of. It is my opinion that this application does not achieve this and presents more as a glorified trailer park. Councillors, I think the applicant can do better, and I applaud the officers for the conditions they have applied under the newly utilised legislation loophole created under the classification of removable dwellings that does not carry the same weight as the usual planning requirements. However, sadly, I don't think those conditions go far enough in delivering an acceptable standard of development in this prime location. Therefore, I will not be supporting this application in its current form. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting. From the outset, let me say that I understand the need for this type of accommodation on the island. I appreciate that this frees up desperately needed housing stock as our ageing population moves to the next phases of their lives. My concern is the quantity of the dwellings in this application. I have seen pictures of old African slaver ships that have more room on them than the way this development is packing in the dwellings. This is an Albert claim to get the best bang for buck out of this project. 277 dwellings makes this project so tight, there's barely room for our flower pot between the dwellings. We are trying to retain the je ne sais quoi of Milal Phillip Island. And further along in this agenda, we are voting on the motion to establish a policy to create a housing and residential development framework. A similar result can be observed at the gateway to the island in San Remo. It is one house on top of the other that gives San Remo a Melbourne suburban look, which we do not want Bass Coast is about. If we allow these sardine can projects to proceed, we are making a noise, without making a noise, we are taking a stand which we as councillors will be rightly held accountable by the ratepayers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a statement. There is a lot not to like about this development. This development does not provide more rental properties for cows. We are expecting people to buy into this area, and it's been stated that it is, the wording is, own the dwelling but lease the land, cheaper alternative. Now, if they are selling their properties to move into this, then their own properties will be up for sale, not producing a rental property. If they are moving out of the rental property to go to this site, we're expecting them to buy into it, which is not what a rental person normally does. I agree with the comments by Councillor Bauer and by Councillor Halstead. There is concerns on this location about the garbage and open space and strategic planning. But overall, I do like the idea. So I'm in conflict a little bit there, but I go back to Councillor Bauer's comment, not shoulder to shoulder. This developer can do better than what he's produced here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Rooks in reply.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention this developer. We had a briefing from this developer and they successfully have these lifestyle villages across Victoria. I can't remember how many, maybe 10 to 15, and they're growing more of them. And it's a successful model that they do. I think we need to appreciate that as we get older, as we mature, that we don't want so much, we require less. And that's the model that these things are built on. I know when I get a lot older that I don't want to live on this 5 acres. I probably want to shrink down to something smaller, which will suit my needs. So I think we need to be aware that these people, the mature people in our community, have different needs than maybe the people making this decision here. And we need to think of that when we make this decision. We know these things are popular. As we said, we've already got one here on the island and it's full, and another one will meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Those in favour? Those against? That's lost. H.2 Planning Application 210395, development of a 3-storey mixed-use building. Ms Taylor to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council Planning Permit Application 210395 for the development of a 3-storey building, reduction of car parking spaces and the alteration of access to a road in a transport zone at 150 Thompson Avenue, Cowes.
In line with Council's delegations, all applications with a cost of works of $3 million or more are to be presented to Council for consideration. This application was advertised to 35 surrounding owners and occupiers. No objections were received. The application has been assessed as consistent with the requirements of the Bass Coast Planning Scheme, and on this basis, it's recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to issue a planning permit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Can I have a councillor move and a councillor to second the motion, please? Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. This is the right building in the right location. As per the development schedule for this site, 3 stories is what the preferred height limit is, and that's what the developer has done for this site. They've also done the right thing with the appropriate setbacks to reduce the bulky look of the building. It's going to provide a retail shop in the bottom level and 22 dwellings close to town, which is fantastic for the needs of those wanting to use active transport, whether they walk or ride into town. That'll be an option that they'll be able to do if they're renting or holidaying in this building. And it attracted no objections, so it seems like it's an appropriate building for the site. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing further to add.
Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting. This application is for a 3-storey plus a roof deck. As a standalone project, it is a very neat package. In fact, it looks a wonderful development and would be an asset to our island. However, this is the second project on Millar Phillip Island in recent times that is pushing the boundaries of our preferred height regulations of 3 stories by making a 4th floor an al fresco space. Our preferred planning policy requires buildings in this part of Cowes to be 3 stories. This is height creep. Similar to 85 Thompson Avenue, which is in front of VCAT at the moment. As I said in application H1, if we don't put our foot down, then the precedents are set and the developers will keep on pressing that for the height or higher buildings. The next development will go for 6 stories and compromise on 5 and so on. VCAT will look at these precedents with the rooftop gardens and say, here lies the compromise. Before we know it, we'll have many 4-story buildings with a roof garden. That, of course, will bring us back to the perennial question of parking, etc. If we pass this motion, why should we why should we bother with agenda H6, which would be a total waste of time and resources? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to highlight that no objections were received on this application from the community, and also the recommendations to support a waiver on 5-car parking spaces is approved because of several reasons, including the fact that the traffic assessment, which was undertaken over the peak period, indicated there was enough on-street parking, and that's not going to impact the amenity to the area. I'm particularly pleased to see the additional of bicycle parking spaces which are being allocated. That is more than the minimum requirement according to the planning scheme. I hesitate to reject this application. In fact, I won't be, because it's in a very well-developed area. It doesn't seem logical to be objecting at the grounds that have already been presented, and there's been no objections to it from the community. So I'm just a bit curious about the logic that's being used for it.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Is there any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Rooks, do you wish to reply?
Yeah, only just to mention what Councillor Bauer referred to with regards to the creep and the precedence that's going to be set. I'm not sure if that's a relevant argument because as councillors, we have to make each decision on its own merit with regards to each application to come in, and we don't look at previous applications or applications nearby. We just look at the application in question.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. We'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. It brings us to H.3 Planning Application 220124, Kiln Road Corinella. Ms Taylor, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council Planning Permit Application 220124. The application proposes the use and development of the land for a dwelling in the Rural Activity Zone, Environmental Significance Overlay and Heritage Overlay at Kiln Road, Corinella. The application was advertised to 6 surrounding landowners and occupiers and attracted 5 objections. The views of objectors, together with the advice provided from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, have been considered, and the application is assessed as inconsistent with the requirements of the Bass Coast Planning Scheme. It is recommended that Council resolve to refuse Planning Permit Application 220124. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Can we have a councillor move, Councillor Kent, and a councillor to second that, Councillor Holstead? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I had to get in quickly for that one. And the reason I put my hand up for is that this proposal has failed to satisfactorily address the objectives and decision guidelines for the Environmental Significance Overlay Schedule 1. It's basically saying that the applicant wants to build in the wrong location on their block of land. And what really annoys me about this whole application is that we are here today discussing this because our planning department spoke to the applicant suggesting that this would not be progressed, is unlikely to be supported by officers, and I'll add to it, councillors, unless they take some good advice about where they should be placing their buildings on their block of land. I would also suggest that if they had taken that advice, we wouldn't be here today discussing this. I can't take it any further, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I echo Councillor Kent's sentiments on this one and would encourage the applicants to work with officers to try and find a solution, maybe find another area on their site to build. These regulations are put in place to protect our very sensitive environment, and Council is very strong on standing by those regulations. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think that the point being is that DELP is the determining authority on this application, and the permit can't be granted without their consent, and they haven't consented. So I think that's pretty straightforward as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Any other councillor wish to speak? If not, Councillor Kent, do you wish to say anything further in reply?
Only, Mayor, that we've got some great knowledgeable planning officers who want applicants to achieve their outcomes, and people should listen to them and take a little bit of free advice. Let's
okay, thank you very much, Councillor Kent. Those in favour? Again, that's carried. H.4 Planning Application 220135, 31 Ventnor Road, Cows. Ms Taylor, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Planning Permit Application 220135 is for the subdivision of land at 31 Ventnor Road in Cows into 4 lots and alteration of access to the transport zone. The application was advertised to 7 surrounding landowners and occupiers. 6 objections and 1 petition were received. The application has been assessed against the relevant provisions of the Bass Coast Planning Scheme and is deemed consistent. It is recommended that council resolve to issue a notice of decision to issue a planning permit for planning permit application 220135. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Ms Taylor, can I have a councillor to move and a councillor to second that motion, please? Councillor Rooks. And Councillor Lasser. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. Yes, for this area, the planning scheme certainly allows a subdivision, especially when it comes to the size of these blocks after the subdivision. They'll be around 1,000 square metres each. And it's probably an appropriate area in Cowes to increase the density. The design of the subdivision has minimal impact with regards with the driveway coming down the middle of the property, and I'll be supporting this application.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, one thing I'd like to highlight on this application was the fact that it's within the town boundaries, and it's really designated as general residential zone, Schedule 1. So for only 4 blocks, I think like in a low density setting, that would be appropriate. So I think the applicant here is, I think he's looked after, that person's looked after this application and where it's sitting. It could be 20 houses, so I think in the terms of the general residential one, I think this is a fair call, and I'm happy to support the application.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Rooks, do you wish to respond?
No, that's fine.
We'll put that motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Which brings us to H.5 Toorak Park Estate VCAT appeal to application under Development Plan Overlay Schedule 24 at Ullathornes Road, Inverloch. Ms Taylor, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's position on a development plan application at 24 Ullathornes Road in Inverloch. The applicant has appealed the development plan to VCAT on the basis that Council has not made a decision on the application within a reasonable timeframe. The application was informally notified to surrounding residents in February 2022. 18 submissions were received. The report provides an overview of the office's assessment of the application. It recommends that Council advise the Tribunal it does not support the application as infrastructure issues identified through the assessment of the application have not yet been appropriately addressed. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Ms Taylor, can I have a councillor move the motion and one to second? Councillor Lang, Councillor Tessari. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As Ms Taylor mentioned, that this is about developing a position when this matter goes before VCAT. Basically, Council has attempted to collaborate with the developer to achieve a suitable outcome for this last portion of available land within Inverloch town boundary. Unfortunately, we have not come to a suitable resolution for a few reasons I'll briefly go into. Although it is likely that this land will be developed for more homes in Inverloch, we as a council need to make sure that it is the best outcome for that site next to a very busy and often tedious stretch of road, being Ullathornes Road. This development could see about 6,000 more traffic movements daily coming out of the site once it is fully developed. And at the current proposal, the treatment suggested for Ullathornes Road would only cater for around 2,500, a little bit more than that movements, which is really insufficient for what we need to achieve at that site. And while we have a housing shortage, we can't just jump on every development proposal and approve them. Council needs to take into account the community who already live in Inverloch and how they would be impacted by this traffic. There's also some issues around the drainage and appropriate stormwater management. As we see the impacts of climate change and severe weather events, the need for effective stormwater management is vital. Unfortunately, with the applicant plans at hand, council officers do not have enough detail to see whether this is appropriate drainage for the development. And we've also had 18 submissions who expressed concerns about the proposal. So I won't be voting in favour of it. I mean, I will be voting in favour of the recommendation to refuse.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Tessari.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As Councillor Lang was talking then and touching on just about everything that I have down here to discuss, I thought I might be left with drainage, but no, she jumped on that as well right at the end. So for all the reasons that Councillor Lang just discussed, I will be supporting the recommendation as well.
Thank you, Councillor Tessari. Any other councillor wish to speak on the motion? If not, Councillor Lang, are you happy to put the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Nothing else to say, Councillor Lang. Those in favour?
Very succinctly, Mr Mayor.
Against? It's carried. Which brings us to H6, commencement of the Bass Coast Neighbourhood Character Study, Housing Strategy and Residential Development Framework, and Ms Taylor to continue the Ms Taylor show. Here's the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council support to commence the first phase of engagement for the Bass Coast Neighbourhood Character and Housing Strategies. Once completed, these strategies will provide a framework for residential development in Bass Coast, ensuring the unprecedented development occurring in the Shire is done in a way that reflects the community's aspirations and protects our unique neighbourhoods. Consultation on the draft strategies is proposed to occur between the 22nd of August and 16th of September this year, and will include a mix of online and face-to-face engagement opportunities. The report also seeks council endorsement of the Bass Coast Residential Market Demand and Supply Assessment, a key background document which will inform the housing strategy. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Can I have a councillor to move and a councillor to second? Councillor Holstead, Councillor Rocks. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've been waiting for this to come to council. I'm really excited that we're looking into the neighbourhood character and housing strategies, and that the community will now have the opportunity to become involved. And I would really encourage as many people as possible to partake in that community consultation. Once again, if I can just give a plug for council's engage.basscoast.vic.gov.au website that I believe has been working really well when it comes to community consultation, and makes it a lot easier for residents to sit quietly in their homes, nice and warm, and get involved with these really important documents that will have their say when it comes to planning, and give us the ability to be able to stop some developments that may not be in line with what we're trying to achieve. Also, that there's going to be online and face-to-face opportunities. I'm assuming that's through Facebook, and some in-person meeting arrangements. So all I can do is encourage people, please get involved in the community consultation. This is a great opportunity, and it is really necessary. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Whelan. Yes, if I could echo what Councillor Holstead has said, and it's a really important piece of work. And one of the council officers during the week said to me that it's a once-in-a-generation piece of work. So we're very privileged and lucky in our community and as councillors to get involved in this over the next year or two as we work through this project. It has ties to the distinctive area landscape because our community has said that we're pretty keen to hold town boundaries in many of our townships across the Shire. So it does pose two questions: how will growth be managed, and what will growth look like into the future? And this work that's going to be done through the housing strategy and the neighbourhood character study is going to help us answer those questions. So please get involved, as Councillor Holstead has said. Read the assessment. It's a mere 150 pages long, but it's got some fascinating information if you want to know the backdrop of how people live and where they live within our Shire. And there's going to be 2 stages community consultation because it's such an important piece of work. So we look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be voting for this, but I would like to bring to the attention of the community that they should read at least the abbreviated form of the assessment and to make comments in regards to that. The assessment states that by 2036, our community will need 10,000 additional dwellings, approximately 656 dwellings per year, and that possibly nearly 50% of these dwellings will be unoccupied due to holiday ownership. So I would suggest that our community needs to take a strong look at that, and this is their opportunity to actually state, do they want us to be heading in this direction? Do they want to make our communities as large as what's being suggested in this assessment? The power is in their hands, but they've got to start writing. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting. I lament that a neighbourhood character and housing strategy was not introduced much earlier. I cannot see the point in going down this path. In a very real way, the genie is out of the bottle. The outcomes of this report, with its glossy cover, will be clinging to a historical nostalgia that cannot be brought back or preserved. By trying to create this development framework so late in the piece, we're kidding ourselves. The damage has already been done. Miller Phillip Island and the historic township of Wonthaggia are relegated to sepia photographs. We should concentrate our energies and resources on tangible outcomes. We should deploy our council staff on more useful projects and save the fortune it will cost the Shire on consultants and officers in this time. I will be voting against this agenda item.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak? If not, Councillor Holstead, you're a bit late there, Councillor Lang, but I did see it. So, okay. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really do hope Councillor Bauer changes his mind on this one. You know, it's unfortunate that we don't have these policies and strategies already in place, but to vote against getting them will only be further detriment to our building form and our communities. It is going to be a balance. I take point on Councillor Kent's point where we have a population that we need to accommodate, and if we're talking about shutting down our township boundaries, that could mean higher density living within those township boundaries in order to accommodate what the state government requires us to accommodate. So there is a lot to be considered, and again, I really would encourage the community to take a look at it. I would prefer, if you've got time, to read the whole assessment, but as Councillor Kent said, if you haven't, then just the preamble would be enough, and really just get involved and have your say. Again, engage.basscoast.vic.gov.au. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Those in favour?
Okay.
Against? Oh, hang on.
Oi.
We'll have that vote again then. We'll late change. Those in favour? Against, carried. There we go. Just let no one say we're not flexible. It brings us, I'll ask you now, Councillor Bauer, to leave the room for the next item, which is the response to the petition.
Bye-bye.
Still showing what's happening. We're just waiting to clarify that Councillor Bauer has left it. The image is frozen there.
I think his mic's
What
still on.
limited is.
Yeah, he's left.
He's left. We confirmed he's left. Therefore, this is 8.7 response to petition, shared path for pedestrians and cyclists between Ventnor and Cowes. Ms. Taylor, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to respond to a petition received by Council at the April 2022 meeting. The petition requested Council consider construction of a shared path between Cowes and Ventnor. This year, Council prepared a draft tracks and trails strategy. Through this process, a connection between Cowes and Ventnor was identified as a priority action. Consultation on the draft plan occurred from 6th of June to 1st of July this year. It is recommended that the petition be considered alongside community submissions to the draft tracks and trails strategy, which will be presented to Council for a decision prior to December 2022. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Can I have a councillor to move and a councillor to second the motion? Councillor Rooks and Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. There's not much more I can add from what Ms Taylor said, other than, yes, this petition was presented at the April meeting and we said we'd get back to the petitioners by August, and it's August now. We thank the petitioners for helping inform the draft tracks and trails strategy, which was out for community consultation, and their input's been taken on board. As Ms Taylor said, we'll know more once the final tracks and trails strategy comes on board sometime in late November, December this year. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge the significant communication I've had with the Cowes community on this strategy and thank them for playing such a crucial role by expressing their views. I do look forward to the matter coming back to Council for a decision in December this year. And I'd also like to thank you, Mr Mayor, and Councillor Rooks for your kind invitation to walk the path yesterday, which we sort of crossed paths in the end, but that Councillor Kent and I walked together and witnessed a nice fat echidna fossicking for food. So that was a real treat. It's a beautiful location, and I do understand why the community feels so passionate about it. So I look forward to those decisions in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? If not, Councillor Rooks, shall we put it to the vote?
Yes, please.
Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Which brings us to, we can try invite Councillor Bowen back into the room. Which brings us to H.8, response to petition parking in Marine Parade, San Remo, and Ms Taylor to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to respond to a petition presented to Council at the May Council meeting. The petition, containing 38 signatures, sought a range of changes to parking restrictions in the San Remo town centre. The report details the ongoing process of monitoring and review of parking controls. It is recommended that this process of monitoring and review continue and that consultation with the head petitioner, local traders and residents occur prior to further changes to parking arrangements being made by December 2022. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Can I have a councillor to move and second this? Councillor Kent. And a councillor to second, Councillor Tassari. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I was waiting for Councillor Lasserve or Councillor Halstead to jump in, but it didn't occur. Look, first of all, it is very abnormal for a council to get parking restrictions 100% correct to suit any community. I've had feedback from the community of San Remo saying that they believe the council's got it about 90, 95% correct, which I reckon is a great outcome for the community. But they do have some concerns for the one end of the precinct there, outside the library, outside the laundromat and across the road at the bus stop. And the councillors of Western Port have pressed their issues very strongly, and it's my belief that the council officers are looking at these couple of issues with an open mind, and we will get an outcome prior to December at the end of this year. So I commend the council officers for what they've achieved, and I look forward to any positive outcomes where we can just tweak it a little bit in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Tassari.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kent, for those words. I'll be very brief. Thank you to the officers for this work. I'll be very, very surprised if we get 100% support from the community about parking issues, but it sounds like Councillor Kent's all over it, and we're very, very close. So I look forward to getting those last few percent across the line.
Thank you, Councillor Tessari. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Serve.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, absolutely, it's hard to get parking 100% correct. I think one of the things that did highlight about was, some of the owners of the business parking out in the front that were taking up their customers' spaces. So I think that happens right across the board in all of our major centres, and San Remo has got busier. One point I do want to make, though, is in Back Beach Road there near the opposite the library. That is, which I always thought was council parking, but it's actually private parking. It's a part of the body corporate, and they've chosen to highlight those areas that are private with yellow markings. So I think the community need to understand that. It's just not that's not a part of the picture. So that kind of takes those parking out of the off the table. Well, it's probably not the right term, but out of the market for people to park generally. We just moved into an area where Bass Coast is busier, and I think there should be equitable parking timing and related issues across the board. So I don't see it any different in Wonthaggi to Cowes to San Remo. I mean, it's just the way it is. So I'm happy to support the report.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I didn't second it because I understand the concerns of the business people who have come forward at that end of San Remo where the laundromat is located. It does, I'm in two frames of mind on which way it should go. I'm pleased at the work that the officers have done, and I look forward to it coming back to council. I think we said in later this year. But I would like to also flag that end of the San Remo main town needs a bit of activation, and I'm looking forward to council moving on the San Remo township strategy to activate that end of our main street. That is likely to include parking once again. And I agree with Councillor Lasserve, it is very difficult to get parking 100% correct. I think that we've tried to do as well as we could. I will support the recommendation. I just wasn't comfortable seconding it given the business feeling on this one. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Any other councillor wish to speak? If not, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to finish off that my belief is that council officers and traders are all working in the same direction to make San Remo Shopping Centre even better than it is. We all know it's the best shopping centre in Bass Coast, so let's just top it up a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent, for that advertisement. Those in favour? Against, it's carried. This brings us to H9, response to petition safety risk Park Parade Road, Cape Patterson. Ms Taylor to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council a response to a petition received regarding traffic concerns at Park Parade Road, Cape Patterson. The petition contains 48 signatures. The report recommends a road safety assessment for Park Parade Road be completed within the short term. In addition, development of a local area traffic management plan for the Cape Patterson Township is also recommended to be referred to Council's 2023-24 budget process for consideration. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Councillor to move and a councillor to second the motion, please. Councillor Lang and Councillor Tessari. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've briefly met with the head petitioner and on this issue. Cape Patterson has experienced some significant growth as a consequence of the eco estate development, as well as anecdotally my understanding that a lot of residents have decided to make their holiday homes permanent. I especially like that this improvement program will look at both short-term issues, immediate safety concerns, because it part of Park Parade actually has a park in it. It's an unsealed road and a lot of people walk from around that area to the park, including myself. And the long term, we look at the more broader issues facing all of Cape Paterson. So I welcome continuing to work with the petitioners and community on this issue and with council and council officers. So I welcome the recommendations in this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Tassari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I applaud this response as well to the petition. Park Parade has one of the worst intersections, I think, in the whole of the Shire. So any work that can be done to go towards fixing this whole stretch up and look at Cape Paterson in general is very, very welcome. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Tassari. Any other councillor wish to speak? If not, Councillor Lang, shall we put this to a vote?
Put it to a vote. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Those in favour? Yes, it's carried. Brings us to H10, Destination Gippsland Partnership Agreement, and I now call on Mr. Box to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enter into a further partnership agreement between Council and Destination Gippsland. Destination Gippsland, along with Destination Phillip Island, are Council's key partners in marketing and curating the visitor experience, which in turn supports the Bass Coast visitor economy. Bass Coast has successfully partnered with Destination Gippsland since its inception in 2008. Council and Destination Gippsland share strategic priorities to generate visitor demand, improve the visitor experience, and help businesses grow. And the new partnership will be critical in supporting the sector and the economy moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Box. I have a councillor to move and second. Councillor Tassari, Councillor Lang. Councillor Tassari, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I most definitely will be endorsing this recommendation. Right now, more than ever, we need these organisations, I guess, to be alliances was the word I was looking for, to be spruiking everything, not only Gippsland, but definitely everything Bass Coast. And I think the implementation some time ago of having the CEO of all Gippsland Shires on the board was a massive organisation. And I think ever since that has happened, all of a sudden Bass Coast seems to be getting a lot more of a push. So I think the work being done at the moment is fantastic, and we really do need the endorsement of this organisation. So I definitely will be pushing for it.
Thank you, Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, I just wanted to highlight that the Bass Coast Shire is the second area that is most reliant on tourism in Australia, close second to the Northern Territory. So just wanted to highlight that one, and also that this partnership, Destination Gippsland won gold in the tourism marketing and campaigns category, the Victorian Tourism Awards recently. We invest in DGL as a partnership with the Victorian Government and the councils of the Gippsland region. And, during the pandemic, the tourism sector got a massive hit. And as Councillor Tassari correctly put, we need these partnerships now more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more a question to the council officers, if I can. It's in regards to, I believe I'll be supporting this fully, but I'd be very interested in regarding due diligence in regards to value for the dollar. Most organisations can state what we get in return for an investment. And I'm just wondering if a council officer can possibly answer that question, if any work's been done in that area.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. I'll throw to Mr. Box.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We do have reporting from DGL. We also have the CEO sits on the board as well. In relation to measurement, there are some broad measures and KPIs that we request of Destination Gippsland, as well as Destination Phillip Island.
Councillor Kent, are you happy with your question?
Yeah, look, maybe I could follow that up later on. I was probably looking for a dollar value, which a lot of people do look in the community, but I'll follow that up later. Thank you.
I think on the basis that we'll take that one offline and appreciate we'll share that information. Did you actually wish to speak to the motion? Okay, any other councillor wish to speak? If not, Councillor Tesari, shall we put that?
Mr. Mayor, if I can, I've just got to try and help our Deputy Mayor with the correct wording on what she tried to say before. So what she was trying to get out, and it's something that I have used a lot over the years in my advocacy roles, is the second most reliant economy on tourism, second only to Uluru. So that is the wording. So you were right thereabouts, but that is the right wording. So put it to a vote, Mr. Mayor.
The right territory. All right, those in favour? Against, that's carried. That brings us to H11, award of tender number 22010, annual supply of stabilisation works. Mr. Mack to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following a public tender process for the annual supply of stabilisation works, it is recommended that Stabilised Pavement of Australia Proprietary Limited and Shore Constructions Vic Proprietary Limited be awarded tender number 22010 to form the annual supply panel for an initial term of 2 years. The establishment of this annual supply panel will assist delivery of Council's construction and maintenance program, including road renewal works. These tenders were assessed as providing the best overall value for this panel, and they have demonstrated that they have the necessary capacity, capability and experience to provide the required works and services. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mack, can we have a councillor to move that motion? Councillor Rooks, it's seconded. Councillor Tesari. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Whelan. Thanks for the report, Mr. Mack, and I think you've covered it all off. I appreciate the work that goes into working out who are our best suppliers for this area, but nothing further to add other than that.
Councillor Tesari.
Happy to
keep it moving. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? If not, put that, Councillor Rooks.
Yes, please.
Those in favour? Against, that's carried. Brings us to another tender, H12, award of tender number 22015, cleaning of council buildings. Mr. Mack to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following a public tender process for cleaning of council buildings, it is recommended that Peopleworks Cleaning Services Proprietary Limited be awarded tender number 22015. This tender was assessed as providing the best overall value, and Peopleworks have the necessary capacity, capability and experience to fulfil the requirements of this contract. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Councillor to move, Councillor Rooks. A seconder, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. In addition to what Mr. Mack has said, Peopleworks is the company we currently use. Therefore, we have good internal references on this group. And there's two other good reasons why we should be engaging them, or why it's a good choice, I guess, that we've engaged them again, is they do go and support inclusive, they're an inclusive employer, I should say. 20% of their team have minor disabilities or disadvantages, and they're looking to maintain this, this level via this tender. And they use the local employment agencies to help get their staff. So that's a really good outcome for our community. And also they're aiming to decrease their emissions by 15% by 2007. So we thank them for their efforts in that area. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, I could go to town on this, but you know very well. But what Councillor Rooks has said, I support, and I think there needs to be much more added. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Larke.
Yes, I'd just like to ask the officers what the current contract value is prior to entering into this new agreement.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd have to take that on notice, but I believe that the contract has been returned within budget.
Okay. Councillor Larke, can we take that one on notice and indicate to you separately and through the minutes?
I'd certainly like to understand the quantum of the increase, if any.
Yeah, do we know that, Councillor?
On notice.
I'm sorry, Councillor Larke, we'd have to take that on notice.
Okay.
Councillor Kent.
Yes, Mayor, I'm just wondering whether I could get another comment from a council officer in regards to, in the past, over several years, we have had issues come and bite us a little bit in regards to when we have special events and we find out there's a problem at a local area. So I'm just wondering how flexible this contract is in regarding addressing issues that may just pop up at the time.
Mr. Mack.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. This contract's for cleaning of council specified buildings, and there's a number of buildings identified in the contract. It's not for public amenities and events and the like. So I believe Councillor Kent's referring to a different service.
Are you clear on that, Councillor Kent?
Yes, I am clear. It was just in regards to certain areas out the front of council buildings and so forth that we may get reports from time to time. But again, that's another one I'll follow up with.
Okay. Councillor Holstead.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if you can answer this or it needs to be referred to an officer, but I have concerns with Councillor Larke requesting or asking the question of the difference in the contract amounts and not being provided the answer to that question prior to him being required to vote on this recommendation. Is there a way that we can get that figure? I know you say take it on notice, but if we take it on notice, how does Councillor Larke vote for the recommendation one way or the other?
That's a good point, Councillor Holstead. There was an opportunity to raise that question before now, so the officer is caught on the hop and has undertaken, and will take that as a debating point.
Thank you.
Hang on, I've just got some further update here from I'm just calling him a councillor there, Mr. Mack.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. The finances section of the report says the lump sum value for the first 12 months is 142,000 and the approved budget for the first 12 months is 392,000.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mack.
Okay, so any other Councillor Larke?
So are we saying that the contract's gone from 392,000 to 1.96 million?
Mr. Mack?
The contract has a schedule of rates. So there's some that's committed, as in lump sum cleaning services for the 5-year term. And then there's additional costs that are incurred based on usage, which is if we need additional COVID touch point cleaning, if we need to purchase consumables, which would be toilet paper and hand soap and the like, depending on the facility, and in response to community bookings and additional cleans that are required. And there's an allowance made for those that are provisional items under the contract.
So is it fair to say it's a rate of charges contract?
And it's within budget.
And within budget. Councillor Larke?
I'd like to...
Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I'd like to forecast a alternative motion in the event that the main motion is defeated.
Okay, I take that on notice, Councillor Larke. Thank you for that. Any councillor wish to speak further on the motion? Councillor Tessari.
If I can just ask of Mr. Mack, is there consequences if this is deferred until Councillor Larke gets the information he needs?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd be recommending a decision is made today based on the contract commencement of the 1st of September 2022, which means that the existing contract arrangements are starting to cease.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Councillor Asari, do you wish to speak? Okay, any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? I think we might have a full dance suite here anyway. Any other councillor I've missed? If not, Councillor Rooks, do you wish to close the debate?
I guess I just mentioned that Councillor Larke's request for the price and whether it's changed is half relevant. The other half that's probably pertinent to ask is, has the level of service changed? In other words, has there been an expectation that they're to do more? And without that information, I guess you're only asking for half the information that's relevant. That's all.
I'll just ask Mr. Mack to clarify
I'm not looking for an answer. I just want to make the point that just asking for the monetary value is not enough. That's all. And I just want to make that point.
All right, so we'll put that motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. That brings us to the statutory reports, and I ask a councillor to move and a councillor second that agenda items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 and 1.4 be considered as a block. Councillor Tasari. Councillor Kent. Those in favour? That's carried. Now, is there any report there the councillors wish to discuss? If not, can I have a councillor move that the recommendations attached to agenda items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 and 1.4 be adopted? That's moved Councillor Tasari, seconded Councillor Kent. Those in favour? That's carried. There is no urgent business that's been notified. And so I make the announcement of the next meeting of council. The next council meeting will be held on the 21st of September 2022 in the Bass Coast Civic Centre Council Chamber, Beaulieu Street East, Wonthaggi, commencing at 1 p.m. Now we have a motion. I'll read it out and then seek a mover and seconder. That the meeting be closed to members of the public pursuant to section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider an item which deals with personal information being information which if released would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs. I have a councillor to move that motion, please. Councillor Bauer, seconded Councillor Tasari. Those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you for watching the live stream of the council meeting. The meeting will now be closed to the public and will end today's live stream. The meeting's adjourned.